Imagine a doctor looking at your medical scan and, well, already having the answer before you've even taken a seat.
Right. It feels almost impossible.
Or, a phone that books your dentist appointment before your tooth even starts to ache.
Hmm.
Or even a global stock market that reacts to a shift in the supply chain before a CEO even finishes a sentence.
Yeah, we are definitely moving out of an age where technology simply waits for our commands. We're stepping into an era where it actually anticipates our movement.
Exactly. I mean, today, predicting the future is no longer a parlor trick. It isn't mysticism. It is just code.
It's all data.
Right. We're looking at a landscape where algorithmic anticipation is a precise, data-driven reality, and it's fundamentally changing the architecture of how we interact with the world. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are so thrilled to have you exploring this with us today.
It's a huge topic.
It really is. And our mission for this session is to pull apart a compact, but honestly incredibly dense snapshot of the AI landscape. This is all sourced from a May 10th, 2026 Daily News Digest.
And this material presents 4 distinct updates, right? We've got a breakthrough in healthcare, a shift in smartphone integration, a massive movement in global finance, and a pretty severe study on algorithmic transparency.
Yeah, and on the surface, those might read like 4 completely separate headlines on your morning news feed, but they are intrinsically connected.
Definitely. The overarching theme we are unpacking today is really about prediction and power.
I like that. Prediction and power.
Yeah, because the source material paints this vivid picture of AI not as some, futuristic concept looming on the horizon, but as a very present, embedded reality.
It's an invisible partner mapping out the terrain before we even take a step.
Exactly. And stepping into that kind of predictive power requires us to really understand the mechanics of what we are handing over.
For sure. So let's start by looking at the most profound, high-stakes application in our sources. Because before AI can, say, manage a calendar or balance a stock portfolio, it is proving its worth in the realm of literal life and death.
Yeah, healthcare is where the stakes are the absolute highest.
Right. The digest details that researchers at a leading university have developed an AI system that analyzes medical images with what they describe as unprecedented accuracy.
Unprecedented is a strong word, but in this case, it fits.
It really does.
Yeah.
This system is specifically targeting the early detection of complex diseases, like cancer and heart disease. And the source says it's ushering in an era of precision medicine.
So to really appreciate the gravity of that update, we need to look at the mechanics of medical imaging. I mean, for decades, the bottleneck in radiology hasn't been the quality of the machinery taking the pictures.
Right. The MRI machines are amazing.
They are. The bottleneck has been the biological limits of the human eye and the human brain. A human practitioner is looking for microscopic anomalies, tiny jagged lines, slight variations in tissue density.
And humans get tired.
Exactly. Human vision is subject to eye fatigue, ambient lighting in the room, cognitive load.
Whereas an AI system doesn't have a visual cortex that gets exhausted at 4:00 p.m. on a Friday.
No, it doesn't.
I sort of picture it like having a superhuman radiologist who has flawlessly memorized every medical textbook in existence and never needs to blink. But how exactly is it achieving this unprecedented accuracy? Is it just like looking at the picture faster?
Not really. It is fundamentally reading the image differently. Like a human sees a picture, right? An AI sees a massive mathematical matrix.
Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah. The algorithm compares the microscopic pixel gradients of your specific MRI against millions of previous scans in its training data.
So it's doing math, not just looking at shapes.
Precisely. It isn't just looking for a visible lump, it's calculating the statistical probability of tissue density changes that are literally invisible to the human eye until they reach a certain, often dangerous size.
It finds the mathematical needle in the biological haystack.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, that makes the technology sound completely infallible.
Yeah.
Which honestly leads me to push back a little on the source material's framing here.
Okay, let's hear it.
The text emphasizes that this reduces human error and promises ultimate precision. But if the AI is mathematically parsing these pixel gradients and catching anomalies a human literally cannot see, does the human doctor eventually just become, I don't know, a liability shield?
A rubber stamp.
Yeah, a rubber stamp for the AI's diagnosis.
Yeah.
How do healthcare professionals adapt to a tool that might just be mathematically superior at the core detection part of their job?
Well, that is the exact existential tension currently echoing through the medical community. The fear of becoming a rubber stamp is very real.
I'd be terrified if I spent 12 years in med school just to click confirm on a screen.
Right, but this is where the source's mention of precision medicine holds the key. Precision medicine doesn't mean replacing the human. It means moving the human away from the deterministic math.
Okay, so what do they focus on instead?
They get to focus on the chaotic, nonlinear reality of a patient's life.
Meaning the diagnosis is really just step one of a much more complicated human equation.
Exactly. Think of it this way. The AI provides perfect intelligence from the biological battlefield. It says, hey, there is a 98% probability of a malignant anomaly at these exact coordinates.
Right.
But the AI doesn't know that the patient is a single mother working 2 jobs who cannot tolerate a specific aggressive chemotherapy because she absolutely needs to remain physically active to keep her livelihood.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the AI has no context for her actual life.
None. The AI handles the pixel-by-pixel detection, which removes the blind spots, and that completely frees up the physician's cognitive load to focus entirely on treatment strategy, empathy, and holistic care.
So the doctor shifts from being a biological detector to a strategic healer.
Yes, exactly.
That means the conversation with the patient totally changes. You aren't sitting in an office anxiously waiting to find out if there's a problem. The doctor walks in, having already been briefed by the AI, and the conversation starts immediately at the solution.
And that completely transforms the patient experience. The technology augments the human element by taking over the raw data processing, which we are comparatively bad at.
Right. We can't read a million pixel gradients at once.
And it amplifies the complex contextual problem solving, which humans excel at.
That's fascinating. But, if AI is successfully mapping the microscopic data points of our biology, the next logical evolution and the second major update in our digest today is seeing what happens when it parses the microscopic data points of our behavior.
Right, moving from the sterile radiology lab right into our personal lives.
Literally into our pockets. We move from AI predicting health outcomes to predicting our daily behaviors. The digest highlights a major smartphone manufacturer integrating an AI-driven personal assistant deeply into their new operating system.
Yeah, this was a big announcement.
It was. And the text specifically calls this a proactive partner.
Right.
Or a personal secretary in your pocket that learns user habits to make daily tasks seamless. Managing smart homes, scheduling the works.
And the crucial phrase there is that it anticipates your needs before you even ask.
Yes. That shift from reactive to proactive seems totally monumental.
It really is, because reactive technology waits for your input. You push a button, it performs an action. It's a one-to-one exchange.
Like setting an alarm clock.
Right. But proactive technology observes your patterns, builds a predictive model of your behavior, and initiates the action on your behalf.
I was trying to visualize this earlier, and instead of the old trope of a digital butler carrying things for you, I think it's more like installing a cognitive suspension system in your life.
Oh, a cognitive suspension system. I like that.
Yeah, like, you know how a good suspension system on a car absorbs all the little bumps in the road so the driver doesn't feel them?
Right, it's a smooth ride.
Exactly. This AI is absorbing the micro-friction of daily choices. Remembering to buy milk, adjusting the thermostat, finding a 20-minute window for a meeting. It absorbs all those tiny cognitive bumps so your day feels, as the source says, seamless.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. The psychological mechanism at play here is called cognitive offloading.
Cognitive offloading.
Yeah, making decisions, even trivial ones like what temperature the room should be, consumes metabolic energy in the brain. When a proactive system removes that micro-friction, it feels incredibly liberating to the user.
But I have to push back on the idea of this being purely beneficial.
Naturally.
I mean, the source calls it a proactive partner that learns our habits. But if an algorithm is constantly absorbing my friction, pre-ordering my groceries, setting my schedule, is it simply learning my habits, or is it inevitably going to start shaping them?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. Where is the line between a machine anticipating what I want and a machine dictating how I live?
The line is practically invisible, and that is why this integration is so profound. Human behavior naturally flows toward the path of least resistance.
We're basically wired to be lazy.
Exactly. So let's look at how predictive modeling works. The AI weights your recent historical data most heavily. If your proactive partner notices you ordered takeout the last 2 Friday nights, it might present a pre-filled order on your screen this Friday at 5:00 p.m.
All I have to do is tap one button to confirm.
Or maybe Eventually, you don't even tap at all. It just arrives.
Which is terrifying, honestly.
But notice, you didn't wake up Friday morning deciding you want a takeout. The algorithm predicted it based on past data, presented the frictionless option, and you simply didn't expend the cognitive energy to override it.
Wow. So over time, the AI isn't just reflecting my organic behavior.
No, it is reinforcing its own predictions.
Hmm.
It creates a closed behavioral loop where you actually become more predictable because the AI is making it too easy to just repeat yourself.
That feels like a very subtle erosion of agency. Like you think you are being catered to, but you are actually just being optimized.
Optimized for predictability.
Yeah. If the AI always suggests the easiest path, my spontaneity just evaporates. So for anyone listening to us right now, the takeaway seems to be a desperate need for hypervigilance about our own preferences.
It absolutely requires active, conscious engagement. You have to routinely stop and ask yourself, am I making this choice because I genuinely want to, or just because my operating system made it the path of zero friction?
Which is exhausting to think about.
Yeah.
But let's take that concept of a behavioral loop and multiply it by 8 billion people.
Oh boy.
If an AI can optimize one person's daily friction by predicting their habits, what happens when you plug that exact same predictive engine into the ultimate chaotic pattern of human behavior?
You get the global stock market.
Which brings us to the third update in our digest. We move from personal tech right into global finance. The source outlines that hedge funds are overwhelmingly relying on AI algorithms to predict market trends.
A massive shift in how money moves.
Right. These systems process vast amounts of data at lightning speed, catching insights that human analysts completely miss. And the digest claims this increases trading efficiency. And this is the part I really tripped over. It claims this democratizes market analysis, making sophisticated insights accessible to smaller investors.
Ah, yes. The word democratize. It does very heavy lifting in tech press releases, often masking the underlying mechanics of how these financial algorithms actually operate.
Well, I have to aggressively challenge the source on this point. I picture the stock market as this massive churning ocean, right?
Sure.
Using AI is like dropping a state-of-the-art sonar array into the water that can map the movement of every single drop instantly. If Wall Street hedge funds are the ones building these supercomputers, they aren't just looking at stock prices.
No, they are parsing alternative data sets.
Right. They're looking at satellite imagery of shipping ports, running sentiment analysis on millions of social media posts, monitoring microscopic weather changes in agricultural zones, and then executing trades in milliseconds.
Which a human could never do.
Exactly. So how does handing a sonar array to a billionaire hedge fund democratize anything for an average retail investor? Doesn't it just give the biggest players an insurmountable head start?
Your skepticism is entirely warranted. The immediate reality of algorithmic trading is a massive concentration of power. The institutions with the most capital build the most sensitive sonar arrays.
So they see the wave forming before anyone else even knows they are in the ocean.
Exactly. They extract the value before the retail investor even gets the notification on their phone.
Then how can the source possibly claim it levels the playing field?
Well, to understand the source's claim about democratization, we have to look at the life cycle of technology, specifically the trickle-down effect of software.
Trickle-down software, okay.
Yeah. A proprietary algorithm built for a massive hedge fund today requires immense compute power and custom infrastructure. But software inherently scales, and over time it becomes much cheaper to reproduce.
So fintech startups sort of observe the big players and eventually build lightweight versions of that tech.
Yes. They build consumer-facing tools that mimic those institutional predictive models. Think about it. 10 years ago, running complex Monte Carlo simulations on a portfolio required a dedicated broker and serious fees.
Right, you had to call a guy in a suit.
Exactly. Today, a retail investor has an app on their phone that runs those simulations instantly, analyzing market volatility and automatically rebalancing their retirement account while they sleep.
Okay, I see that. But wait, I still see a massive flaw in that logic.
It is.
By the time that tech trickles down to the retail investor on day 1,000, the hedge funds are already on day 2,000. They have moved on to quantum computing or an even faster neural network. Are we ever actually catching up, or is the gap just moving faster?
You are identifying the perpetual treadmill of technological advancement. The gap between institutional power and retail power may never fully close, but the baseline shifts.
Baseline?
Yes. The democratization the source refers to isn't about the retail investor beating the hedge fund at high-frequency trading. It is about the retail investor gaining access to a baseline level of predictive analysis and risk management that previously cost thousands of dollars.
Ah, I see.
The floor is raised for everyone, even if the ceiling continues to rise for the elite.
Okay, the floor is raised, but we are still playing in a house built by someone else. Which leads us perfectly into the final and undoubtedly most critical piece of our deep dive today.
The ethics.
Yes, we've established that we are handing over the architecture of our lives to predictive models. They are reading our health, they're managing our time, and they're moving our money. So the terrifying question is, what if the foundation of that architecture is structurally flawed?
And this is where we have to confront the study on algorithmic systems mentioned at the very end of the digest.
Right. The source notes that a new study raises severe concerns about bias and the lack of transparency and accountability in these decision-making processes. It insists that AI must operate fairly.
Which sounds obvious, but it's incredibly hard to engineer.
Right. The text says the defining challenge is balancing rapid innovation with the responsibility to ensure these systems benefit everyone equitably.
To understand why transparency is suddenly such a massive crisis, we have to pull apart the mechanics of how modern machine learning actually works.
Let's do it.
We are no longer dealing with traditional linear programming. It's not a human writing a rule that says, if X happens, then do Y.
Right. It's not a simple flowchart anymore.
Far from it. We are dealing with deep neural networks. These networks have an input layer where the data goes in, an output layer where the prediction comes out, and in between there are dozens, sometimes hundreds, of what they call hidden layers.
Hidden layer.
Yeah. As the AI trains on billions of data points, it forms dynamic weighted connections in those hidden layers. It is calculating probabilities in a multidimensional space that the human brain literally cannot visualize.
Wow. So this is what is known as the black box problem.
Exactly. The pathway the AI takes to reach its conclusion becomes so mathematically complex that even the engineers who designed the architecture cannot map it backwards.
Wait, really? The creators don't even know how it gets the answer.
Right. They see the data go in, they see the result come out, but the middle is totally opaque.
If the engineers can't map it, how on earth do we achieve the transparency the source is demanding? I mean, if a predictive algorithm is used by a bank and it denies someone a mortgage, but the bank's own programmers can't explain exactly which variables in the hidden layers triggered the denial, who gets sued?
That is the exact crisis of accountability we're facing.
How do you appeal a decision made by a math equation that literally nobody understands?
You generally can't, and the danger amplifies exponentially when we consider what the AI is training on. A neural network doesn't have an inherent moral compass, right? It is just an incredibly efficient pattern recognition engine.
And the data it uses to learn those patterns is human history.
Precisely.
And human history is incredibly messy, flawed, and filled with terrible biased patterns.
Exactly. If you train a hiring algorithm on 30 years of corporate resumes, and historically, that industry heavily favored a specific demographic while ignoring others, the AI doesn't recognize that as a historical flaw.
It just thinks that's the rule for success.
Right. It recognizes it as a winning formula. It looks at the data and learns, the mathematical pattern for a successful executive looks like this specific profile. It basically codifies human fallibility into rigid, automated rules for the future.
So it isn't a malicious programmer sitting in a dark room writing bad code. It is an objective machine holding a mirror up to our past and then blindly applying that reflection to our future.
That's beautifully said, yes.
When the digest calls for transparency, it is essentially demanding that we force the black box open. We need explainable systems that can articulate the why behind their outputs, because these invisible layers are making decisions about the listener's credit, their healthcare, and their livelihood.
It demands a fundamental shift in how we interact with technology. We can no longer be passive consumers. We have to be active auditors.
We have to audit the machines.
Yeah. Understanding that these systems are predictive, probabilistic, and trained on historical data is literally the only way to recognize when the machine is getting it wrong.
This has been such a profound deep dive today. I mean, we started by throwing out the old idea of predicting the future with crystal balls, and we looked at the actual code running our reality.
From the micro to the macro.
Exactly. We went from the micro level, exploring how AI parses the invisible pixel gradients of our medical images to push doctors from detection into complex healing.
Then we move to the personal level, unpacking how proactive personal assistants act as cognitive suspension systems.
Smoothing out the friction of our daily routines, but potentially trapping us in predictable behavioral loops.
Right. And then we scaled up to the macro level, looking at how lightning-fast algorithms process alternative data to map the chaotic ocean of global finance.
Raising the baseline of analysis for everyone, even as hedge funds race further ahead. And we anchored it all in the structural reality of the black box, the urgent need for explainable systems to ensure we aren't just automating the flaws of our past.
If there is one core insight to walk away with, it is that in an era of predictive power, your critical thinking is your absolute most vital asset.
100%.
Deep dives into how these mechanisms actually work, not just reading the headlines, but really understanding the underlying architecture is what equips you to navigate this landscape.
Yeah.
You are not just a data point. You have to remain an active participant in how your world is mapped.
I couldn't agree more. But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you, our listener, with one final thought to mull over. We talked about AI removing the friction from our personal lives, making everything seamless and anticipating what we want before we even ask.
The zero friction life.
Right, but friction is often where growth happens. It is where we stumble into a new restaurant we didn't plan on visiting, or make a messy, illogical choice that leads to a great memory.
The human element.
Yeah. If AI gets so perfectly tuned to predicting exactly what we want, completely eliminating the bumps in the road, do we eventually lose the desire to make decisions for ourselves? If all the friction is removed from life, do we lose our human spontaneity?
That is a chilling thought.
Think about that the next time your phone suggests your next move. Are you making the choice, or is the algorithm just finishing your sentence?
Thank you so much for joining us and for taking the time to unpack these sources together.
It's been a pleasure.
Stay curious, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.